Bonjour.
Hello and a warm welcome to So French, le podcast from Paris about France, its crazy politics and life à la française.
My name is Stefan Vries.
And my name is Sara Bertilsson.
And in this episode of So French, we'll celebrate that France finally, and with about a month only of delay, has a budget for this year. A budget and a government. Well, that's quite something in French politics, at least for now.
Yes, and we're going to stick to tradition. We will talk Sarkozy later in the show. Not Nicolas Sarkozy this time, though. Louis Sarkozy, the former president inmate's 28-year-old son, who is walking in his father's footsteps, hoping to become mayor for the first time at the same age as his father actually became mayor for the first time, so at 28 years. Louis Sarkozy, a Nepo baby, brought up in the US, masculinist, Republican Party candidate in the sleepy French Riviera town of Menton.
Yeah, but we start this show on a serious note. It's difficult to ignore what's going on in the world. Every day is another episode in a crazy soap opera. Even if France at the moment nationally goes through a rough political time, it is nothing compared to what's happening on the world stage, where the world as we knew it, Sarah, is about to crumble.
Maybe it is. It's a bit pretty scary times, I must say, and it's worrying on so many levels. And as you say, we've had political problems here in France, but what we're seeing now on the international stage is something completely different. What we saw then this week was Emmanuel Macron taking a step forward in Davos, lashing out quite harsh about the shift towards a world without rules, urging the world to reject the law of the strongest, and he also condemned a shift towards autocracy against democracy. And the question now is, of course, was this the right move of Macron?
Well, it was a bold move. He also, he didn't mention Trump literally, but he called the American president a tyrant, which are really tough words for one of the oldest allies of the United States. Also a country, of course, France, that has always been quite critical on American politics, always had a sort of like a separate position when it came to the transatlantic relations, if you compare to other European countries. Was this the right move, the speech of Emmanuel Macron? I think it gave a sign of the fact that the Europeans, exactly 1 year after Donald Trump took power last year in 2025, that the Europeans are now fed up with the bullying of the American president. I think it was a good sign. Of course, it remains to be seen if the Europeans will stay closely knit together, because the attitude towards the Americans has changed a lot over the last few weeks or even the few days. So it was bold, but nevertheless, I think it was a right decision. It gave a very strong signal to Washington. But I think Emmanuel Macron was maybe a bit afraid of the reactions of the American president, because he didn't take off his sunglasses in Davos. Even it's a winter sport a resort, of course, but he was talking inside with glasses. What was that about, Sarah?
Well, it gave him a little bit of a little bit of a Tom Cruise Top Gun style, didn't it?
Or a mobster. So that is maybe how you can treat the mafia from Washington. But
I don't know. Well, explanation, of course, from the Élysée that Macron is having a benign eye issue, so to say, nothing serious. But yeah, maybe it definitely, I would say, I don't know if it worked, but it's clearly made everyone react to the French president. Probably they would have done that anyways. The question, yeah, of course, is this the right move of Emmanuel Macron? I think, he has been, on a national level, this was what was demanded because he has been very criticized here in France for his quite weak positioning against Donald Trump lately, notably when it came to the the US abduction of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, where Emmanuel Macron, first of all, didn't react at all. And once he finally said something, he completely left out the international law part of things and only said that he wished for a peaceful transitioning into democracy for the country. And this was, of course, extremely criticized. Here in France, senators, MPs, there were letters being written and, demanding from Emmanuel Macron to clarify his position. And he did. He did come out later to say that, of course, this was not the way to do things. But so I think that, and also this is something that has been, I have a real feeling that in France, public opinion is also asking for the French president, but for all of Europe to actually stand up in a much firmer way against Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think we saw a real shift in the opinions of the Europeans also this month towards a much stronger anti-American attitude than could have been imagined before. There's really something going on in the relationship between Europe and America, and I think Emmanuel Macron expressed this quite fittingly in his speech at Davos. Of course, Donald Trump will also give a speech. We are recording this just before that speech. So maybe when this episode goes online, we are already in a third world war. But jokes aside, it is, of course, a very serious situation. And I think one of the most tense periods after the Second World War between Europe and the United States.
Yes, and as you say, I was looking into the French numbers when it came to their how they see Donald Trump, and today a majority of French actually see the U.S. and the American president as an enemy, which is quite stunning, to be honest. I also looked at, and of course, Donald Trump is no favorite personality of the French, but just one little detail in all of this. There are some people still in France supporting Donald Trump, around 19%, sorry, according to a poll that I found. And I was just remembering, we talked about approval rates for French politicians recently in our podcast, and I think that Emmanuel Macron has an approval rating of about somewhere between 11 and 16%. I don't think you can completely put these two polls side by side, but still, you have 19% of the French population who thinks that Donald Trump is doing a good job, and only around between 11 to 16 thinking that the French president is doing something good. So I don't really know what more to do with these numbers, but I found them quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, there was an opinion poll earlier this week also in the Netherlands about the opinion of the Dutch on Donald Trump. And the Dutch have always been very pro-Atlantic, very American in a sense. But now the Dutch see the United States as the biggest threat to European security, even a bigger threat than Vladimir Putin.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's really astonishing. Only 7% of the Dutch see the relationship with the Americans as positive. So that's crazy. The Dutch really feel betrayed by Donald Trump, and they express it as well. It is quite a historical shift in the relationship between Europe and the United States.
All right, moving on
Moving
back
on.
to France.
Let's talk about money, Sarah.
And let's talk about money, and let's maybe celebrate a little bit because France has a budget.
Yeah, it's incredible. We've been talking about that a lot the last few episodes, sort of Groundhog Day. Every time we think, oh, there may be a budget. Well, there is one now. After days of speculation about what he was going to do, Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu decided on Tuesday this week to invoke the Article 49.3 of the French Constitution. This is a legal term, but it means that he can force his decision on the budget through the parliament. So put his 2026 budget bill through the lower house, the Assemblée, without a vote. So the government just, ignores basically parliament. Opposition parties, including, of course, the hard left, La France Insoumise, France Unbowed, and the far-right National Rally, the Rassemblement National, they have filed no confidence motions in response, which is also normal procedure in these situations. So also here, Groundhog Day. But nevertheless, there is a budget for this year.
Yes, I mean there are several. Well, I think that's something we should all, be happy about in
Celebrate.
one sense.
Yay.
Not always that you would celebrate a country's budget, but I mean
No.
it's clear, and it's needed for a country to function. So I think we should be happy about that. That said, this doesn't mean at all that there is some kind of consensus, because as you mentioned, this budget was not, agreed on because there was an agreement between the different parties in Parliament. It is now coming into effect because Lecornu decided to push it through without a vote in Parliament. And this was exactly what he had promised not to do. Remember only a few months ago in October when he first became prime minister, then stepped down, and then became prime minister again. And he said that, okay, I promise that this time we're going to do things differently. We're not going to use this tool of the French Constitution, and I promise you, I'm not gonna use it. So finally, he did.
Yeah, incredible.
He
So
said
what
that
is-
he done
yeah.
it. He said he did it with like a heavy heart. That he he talked about regrets and bitterness, but there was no other choice than doing this and he also accused actually then the far left and the far right to have sabotaged the budget negotiations by willingly trying to overspend or making sure that it wasn't going to function.
Yeah. So for the people who are not living in France who listen to this podcast, this Article 49, paragraph 3, or 49.3, as it is known in France, what is it exactly? Because I don't think many countries have this
No, I mean, this
possibility.
is part. It's something that was put in it exists in the French Constitution, and it's a way. It's something that's actually considered quite undemocratic and an abuse of power by many parliamentarians and also actually the French public in general. But it allows the government to override Parliament. If there are legislation that the prime minister considers crucial. And this is something that was notably used by Emmanuel Macron to push through his very, to say the least, unpopular pensions reform.
Yeah.
The same pension reform that, is now suspended, remember? Because of all these negotiations, the government agreed actually to suspend the pension reform to have some kind of, as a concession to the socialists. So I have a feeling that things, we do full circle on quite a lot of things when it comes to the budget negotiations. But yes, this is the 49.3, as it's called here in France. It is used, and we must say it has been used by many French governments, and is being used more and more lately because we have this parliament, of course, with no clear majority. So it's very difficult to get crucial legislation through using the normal procedures. So yeah, no confidence votes to take place on Friday this week. What do you say, Stefan?
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think it will be the motions will be voted in favor or against? What are the expectations? Sorry, what
Well,
are
you
the
should never say
expectations?
never, and I'm always very careful of being too sure of something. But what it looks like at the moment is that there's no way that these motions are going to get the support and that the government would fall because of that. Because what happened was that last minute, to make sure that the government wouldn't fall, Lecornu had some last minute negotiations with the Socialist Party, and he actually gave them quite a lot to buy their support for the government. Last minute negotiations gave them €50, a rise of €50 every month to the lowest income earners in France. 2,000 jobs in the education sector. €1 fixed price for students in higher education canteens. This is something that already existed, but it's a continuation of this program. And also a boost in the supply of affordable housing. And now you ask,
Yeah.
of course, so how are we going
Yeah.
to pay for this?
Yeah, exactly. Because
Well, I don't know.
also you don't know. Okay. And also what I'm wondering is does this do anything to make France respect the European budget rules, the rules that where your budget deficit cannot be higher than 3% of the national income, where your national debt has to be lower than 60% of the national income? Will it do anything to respect the Brussels rules finally, Sarah?
The short answer to this, of course, is no. But there was never the goal that this budget was going to respect the budget targets and limits of the European Union. It's a step-by-step procedure, and the Prime Minister says that this budget keeps it brings down the current spending deficit to 5%, to no more than 5% of the country's GDP. And that is even so lower than last year, where it was at 5.4% of GDP. So those are the calculations made by the government. This extra spending that now was, that little shopping tour that Lecornu went on the final days of these negotiations will, they say, be financed with an additional tax on large corporations here in France.
Right. Well, we'll probably keep an eye on this budget the next few weeks. It's already almost February, and so now the French state can finally start spending money.
And start working on the next budget.
Yeah, because that needs to be voted usually in September or something, September, October.
Well, remember,
in normal times,
at least in normal times, there are no such things anymore in France. But of course, work on the next year's 2027 budget is, of course, has to start immediately.
It will, of course, cause a lot of political stir. And also, maybe some things will change after the results of the local elections that will take place in about 6 weeks from now, in March. Of course, these are very local because there are 36,000 communities, local councils in France. So that does not really reflect national politics, but it gives you an idea about where next year's presidential election could lead. But let's have a look at one of the most interesting candidates in these upcoming local elections. It is a name that we mention almost in every podcast since we started more than 10 years ago. And it's the family name Sarkozy. He's back.
Well, he's back, but in a younger version.
Yeah.
We must say. Lou,
Reincarnation.
a reincarnation. Well, it's this time we're actually going to talk about then Louis Sarkozy, Nicolas Sarkozy's one of Sarkozy's sons. And he has decided to follow in his father's footsteps and also become a politician. And he's not doing what his father did, who went for a very chic town outside of Paris. Louis Sarkozy goes for the Riviera, also, well, must say quite chic town, but far from Paris. Menton is the name of the city that might then have, as of this year, a mayor with the name of Sarkozy. But we'll see about that. We'll get to that later. But what do we know? What do you know about Menton? Stefan, have you been there?
Yeah, I've been there. It's quite a posh village. Actually, the French Riviera in general, it has a very old population. A lot of people vote for Rassemblement National, Front National. I've been there. It's next to the Italian border, I think, but I don't really have a very vivid image of that place, Menton. But it always sounds very chic to me. Is it?
It does. It's called, I saw somewhere, France's most Italian town. I don't know what that means.
Okay. Yeah, probably that area was Italian, just like Nice until the end of the 19th century. I'm not sure, but that was probably part of the Savoie, the principality. But it's a nice area. The weather's good, food is nice. There's some beaches. I can imagine that Louis Sarkozy has a very strong connection with the region, of course, because otherwise you wouldn't stand in an election there.
Yes, but this is where things then get more interesting. Louis Sarkozy actually didn't even grow up in France, because when his parents got divorced when he was around 10 years old, he moved to the United States with his mother and his then stepfather, and he grew up in the United States and hasn't lived in France then and since then. Came back I think only a couple of years ago as a 26-year-old, now, well, having some business projects, but also then already at the time, I think there was a plan to go into politics. But he has no real relation to Menton, more than the fact that he says that he likes the place. He has decided to settle down in this town with his young family, and he says that he cares more than anyone for Menton. I mean, the reasoning behind this is, of course, that this is done not only by Louis Sarkozy. Of course, has been done by all political parties in France since the beginning of the times. Is that when you have a candidate that you want to, or when someone wants to, launch their political career and be sure that they're gonna be elected, you put them in a place. Or you settle down in a place where you have a great possibility of being elected. He clearly saw his possibility to start his career there. From the beginning, actually, he wasn't supported by any of the main political parties. But now, lately, he has gained the support both of Les Républicains, so the party that his father founded, Horizon, more interestingly, which is the party by Edouard Philippe, who was Emmanuel Macron's first prime minister, who then set up his own party, and lately has even called for Emmanuel Macron to step down as president. So that's sort of just the situation between the two men. And now, very recently, Louis Sarkozy also got the support from the local branch of the Renaissance Party, so Emmanuel Macron's own party.
So everybody supports him, basically, or...
Well, but he was very enthusiastic and happy about this support. And according to Louis Sarkozy, there is only one real enemy when it comes to politics, and that is the far left here in France. And so he was so excited about this support from Renaissance that he said, well, I'm happy to work with anyone, even the far right and the extreme right. And this was, of course, something that maybe didn't go down as well as the rest. And this caused a bit of a stir because the party leader for Renaissance on a national level, then Gabriel Attal, as you might remember, another one of the former French prime ministers. We've had a few. He was very upset, of course, and saying that this was, outrageous. That the party was never going to collaborate with Marine Le Pen's national rally, and even less so with Reconquête, which is the extreme right party. You might remember Éric Zemmour's.
Now let's give Louis Sarkozy the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I'm sure that he will get elected, and it will have nothing to do with his background or his privileged position or his last family name. I mean, this is all a coincidence, of course. So let's have a look then where we can really judge him, and that is, of course, his program. I think he must have probably a very ambitious program for Menton, because if he really wants to get elected there, he probably has a lot of ideas, Sarah. I think you looked into his program, right?
Well, I tried. I really tried. I have been working both the internet and my email inbox to actually try to get hold of Louis Sarkozy's political program, and I am sad to announce that I failed in my journalistic research because I did not. Neither did I find anything on any of the websites that he has set up for his campaign. Not on the Les Républicains, and not in any other media either. And when I emailed his campaign to get this information, I did not get a response. So, I mean, you say we give people the benefit of the doubt. If they reach out and we do get a program, we will, of course, look into it and see what he has to offer. For the moment, there's only one thing, actually, that more concrete thing than the other that I've noticed that he has been proposing, and it is that he wants to get rid of traffic lights.
Okay, interesting.
Because traffic lights takes away individual responsibilities, and we should let people be responsible for their actions by not, trusting a system of green, yellow, and red. So,
yeah. Well, I don't know if his argument is really valid, but the idea of no more traffic lights it has been tested in quite a few towns and cities, especially here in the Netherlands. And actually, streets become safer because indeed people pay more attention. So it isn't that foolish, but I don't know if he uses the right motivation for this. If he's maybe he doesn't like red, green, yellow. Is that what his argument is?
No, well, his argument is that it's an individual question of individual responsibility, and I went down a rabbit hole researching for this, and the thing is that he's got a famous last name, and he says himself that his success as a politician will have nothing to do with that. I am pretty sure that we can say that is not true, because of course the attention, the media space, the reason why we are talking about him, of course, is because he is Nicolas Sarkozy's son, and because he himself has been on his Instagram handle was for a long time Sarko Jr., and he's been calling himself a mini Sarkozy and all of this. So I mean, he's really playing on his background.
Yeah.
But you remember last time I asked, for some new faces and some fresh faces in French politics? You never really know, you should be careful with what you ask
wish for. Yeah.
Right?
Well, I'm sure in the next episodes we will talk again. Maybe not about Louis Sarkozy, but we will talk about the local elections because they are quite interesting and pretty folkloristic as well if you compare it to many other European countries. Now, in the beginning, we talked about the war between the United States and Europe, and one place where the war is going to be fought is in the museums. And the Louvre just fired their first shot. Sarah,
Well,
you live
what is
next to the... Yeah, you
I
live
do, but tell me, what is
Yes.
this? What
Are
is
you going
going
there
on?
regularly? Yeah, what is going on?
I do.
You didn't you didn't realize it became a battlefield. Well, actually, the Louvre, the world's most visited museum in the heart of Paris, everybody knows it, the place where Mona Lisa lives, and many more marvelous international and French art. Well, that museum is going to hike the ticket prices. They will increase the entrance fee for non-European visitors with 45%. And the price will now be
Wow.
32 euros if you're not lucky enough to live in the European Union. And the Louvre says it's part of a differentiated pricing policy that also applies to other major cultural sites, including, for instance, the Palace in Versailles or the Paris Opera House. So this is a new strategy that will benefit European visitors, or at least not harm them, and a sort of extra tax on foreign visitors. All this because the Louvre needs money. They also want to decrease the number of visitors because the building has become too cramped. And of course, the security needs a big investment because last year the Louvre was victim of a heist that could be made into a Netflix series. Have you seen Arsène Lupin, Sarah, on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
Oh, that's such a
But
nice series. But
I did see original footage from the heist itself.
yeah,
Yeah, I
well,
can be sure that there will definitely be a
well,
Netflix
the
series on.
series starts with a heist in the Louvre, in the middle of the Louvre. So fiction becomes reality. Also, actually, we should mention Borgen, the great Danish series that has in the last season. It's about everything that happens on Greenland. So actually, reality is stranger than fiction. So the Louvre is going to be far more expensive. The only solution to that, if you don't want to pay such a high price for the world's biggest museum, just come to Europe and live here. It's a nice place. But yeah, this is a way of.
But it's incredible. But I mean, 32 euros is a lot of money, especially if you travel to Europe from, let's say, far away. You already have quite a lot of expenses. You're probably traveling maybe with your family as well. That it's really something. I mean, it's a big budget to have to go to a museum.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm quite surprised by this. I mean, I totally understand that they need money, but 32 euros and and is it? I mean, you say that culture unites people, and that if there's one way that can make us understand each other and create, understanding for different cultures and our conditions, it's culture. And this doesn't look like it goes in that direction.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah. Well, it's time to wrap up this edition, Sarah of So French. You can find all our episodes where you usually get your podcasts. And if you don't want to miss any of our shows, make sure to follow us.
And you can find us on Instagram. Just search for So French Show. Please share this episode with your friends and family, enemies, and whoever you want to share it with. Send us an email. We're happy to have your reactions. It's bonjour@sofrench.show.
And this podcast, Sarah, will stay free for anyone in Europe, but also outside Europe, from all over the world. Everybody's welcome. We'll be there very soon again in 2 weeks. This podcast is produced and presented by me, Stefan Vries, and
by me, Sara Bertilsson. And this podcast's original music is made by Laurent Blot. We will be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. And until then, take care and au revoir.